Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Dave Carroll, a renowned singer songwriter and master storyteller from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Dave shot to international fame with his 2009 viral hit, United Breaks Guitars, a powerful music video that chronicled his experience with poor customer service at United Airlines. This video not only became one of the most watched YouTube music videos of its time, reaching over 150 million viewers, but also sparked a global conversation about customer service and social media's power to drive change. Beyond his music, Dave is a sought after speaker and consumer advocate known for his compassion and ability to create movements through storytelling. He's been featured in major media worldwide and has shared his insights at prestigious events like TEDx and Columbia University. Let's dive into his inspiring journey and learn from one of the nicest guys in the business. Thank you so much for joining me, Dave Carroll.
Thanks, Ryan. What an intro.
Man, I'm honored to have you here. How did your early experiences with your brother Don and Sons of Maxwell shape your solo career?
Well, probably it's all founded upon that, right? Where you are today is based on what you did before. I think it all builds. So, we called our band Sons of Maxwell because that's our dad's first name, and our dad was our earliest influence. He would come in. Don and I shared a bedroom. We were growing up for a while, and so our dad would come in with a guitar and he would just sing songs for the fun of it, and that's where we learned singing and having fun with music, just for the sake of the enjoyment you get from it. So we brought that passion into it as a duo. And when we first started, I played guitar and not very well at all. And Don didn't play any instruments except maybe the tambourine or the Irish drum. So we had to pack a lot into our show to entertain people. We were going into bars and pubs and trying to hold people's attention with one guitar and two voices when usually you need drums or a bass guitar to really get the feet tapping and that sort of thing. So we learned how to play to the crowd, give the crowd what they wanted, and entertain and engage people and ask people to sing with us. When we didn't have a big enough band, we turned the audience into our band, and we had these great moments of coming together where it was a really connected room full of people, and we were just happened to be having the microphones, but it's that kind of experience that I think formed my solo stuff as a songwriter. I started to delve into songwriting and storytelling. Again, with song is an opportunity to share your experiences or somebody else's in a way that makes people feel it, and that's what storytelling is, right? It comes from the heart to the heart of the people, and so yeah, everything I've done, I think, has always led to where I am today.
That's incredible. What inspired your debut solo album, Perfect Blue, and your follow up, Raincoat in Vegas?
So I guess Sons of Maxwell, we had pub favorites, cover songs that we did for a long time. Then I started writing other songs that were appropriate for Sons of Maxwell. And I was continuing to write songs that maybe didn't fit the band perfectly or was really suited for a solo artist. So I had that collection of things after 20 years, and I decided that I just wanted to try and get those ideas down and sort of step out into that solo space and see just explore that. I had the experience of having a band or having a partner the whole time, but it's a different thing when you're doing it by yourself. So I wanted that experience, and the first CD again leads to the next one, and so I've been exploring different ideas about songwriting and storytelling in a band group for myself and for other people since then.
Can you share your songwriting process and how you extract the essence of a message into a song?
Yeah, I think some people are more music first than lyrics first. I would imagine someone like Leonard Cohen. He's a poet, right? He probably wrote the lyrics first and then came up with a tune to match it. But Paul McCartney, if you like the Beatles, you can sort of tell that his songs are very melodic. Something like Penny Lane, a song like that. You could tell that he probably wrote that, and he probably wrote the music first. And I would be more in that camp. I tend to play with chord structure and melody, and when I find something that I really like, then I start thinking about, okay, now it's time to get down to the nitty gritty, and then bang your head against the wall thinking of lyrics that support that. So I find the music comes more naturally, and the lyrics I got to work a little more on.
What was your thought process when writing United Breaks Guitars?
So that leads, I guess, to your first question, like how your earlier life influences the way you act, the way you approach work later, right? And so 20 years I'd been playing with Don. We played a lot of pub shows, and I had this problem where the airline broke my guitar and I wanted to put it on this thing called social media I'd heard about. And if anything, I guess I understood the essence of social media, that it's really busy people willing to drop into your thing for a heartbeat.
Mhm.
And if you can uh, do something that looks good, sounds good, and makes people want to tell their friends about it, then you understand social media. You don't need anything more than that. If you can do those three things, you're gonna do better than you will if you try and analyze data and uh, approach it uh, from that side of things. But so when I was writing this song, United Breaks Guitars, and I wanted to capture the essence of my story in that song, I started thinking about when I was in the pub early on, and there would be old people and young people all drinking, talking over us, and paying attention. How could we grab their attention for 4 minutes? And there were certain songs that did it better than others, right? Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison Blues. That song always made people stop, and they'd start looking at us, and they would start singing along. And uh, and so that's the template of United Breaks Guitars. It has that same. I borrowed the template from that. It's got that same Folsom Prison Blues feel, that boom chugga laka boom chugga, chugga. and uh, and so that made it instantly kind of relatable. And then for the lyrics, I thought I promised the airline 3 songs, so you can only do one thing at a time. So I said for this first song, I'm just going to tell the story as it happened, and I'll take it chronologically. I was leaving Halifax. I was going to Chicago. There was a plane. There were some baggage handlers. My guitar got broken. So I just basically told the story and had a nice big fat chorus that you could sink your teeth into, right? So as a songwriter, having played lots of great cover tunes in my day too, there are certain things that make a song hooky. And my brother Don says that the United Breaks Guitars has more hooks than a box of fishing tackle in it.
This is definitely a catchy song. And how did creating that song change your career and influence your approach to music and storytelling?
It didn't change my views on storytelling, but it confirmed my suspicions, right? That if you can tell a story in a way that makes people feel something, and in the case of United Breaks Guitars, it turns out that everybody's had a bad airline experience and everybody's been disrespected by an airline or had a bag that didn't show up, and the ripple effects of what that means, or your stuff being broken. So that's happened to so many people that when they heard my song told in a good way and in an engaging way, it made them feel something. So that's again what storytelling is. Uh, but it changed my career instantly because thanks to social media and having something that stood out and made a lot of people pay attention at the same time. If that happens to you, good things are going to happen, right? And uh, typically in a music business, you would have a hit song on a radio, and then you would do a tour and all those typical things. But none of that happened to me, and that's where I think my story is a little interesting, and that social media was new. So what happens when you have a viral video like that? It's #1 in the world. Well, that didn't affect my music career. It's not like labels came running and saying, we got to get you on the biggest stages in the world. That didn't happen at all, because at the time in 2009, the major labels had no respect for YouTube because it wasn't monetized.
Right.
And and so they just thought, this is just something that's, we're not going to bother with that. There's no future in it, maybe, or we don't know what to do with it. So for me, uh, the opportunity came with when so many people were talking about it. Some people said, "Do you want to come and talk at my event?" And so that became a career I hadn't even thought about, but I found it. I liked it, and I found it that I think I'm good at it. Because I approach it like a musician does a gig. And when I walk on stage and I talk for an hour, I try to bring people through emotional moments. I tell them stories, and I play a little music, and I mix it up a little bit, and I hopefully have some usable things that they could take back to their businesses or their professions, and make it relatable. But so that was the biggest change. I became, in addition to a musician, a public speaker, professional motivational speaker. And so that's taken me around the world. And while I'm in these places around the world, I get to see and meet really interesting people, and I'm learning myself the whole time. So I'm seeing cutting edge things happening a little bit ahead of the curve if it's an AI conference or something like that. And I love it. I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
Most definitely. How do you see the impact of United Breaks Guitars on customer service and corporate accountability worldwide?
Well, it was much it was in the public eye a lot more in 2009, 10, 11, 12, and so it's been going down a little bit since then. But the legacy of it, I guess, is that was one of the first times that a customer proved that one customer could affect the profitability, maybe, or the bottom line of a major corporation. And the typical mindset at the time was try to deliver some sort of level of customer service. If some people fall through the cracks, it's okay. They can't do anything about it and they'll just go away. Well, this showed that that wasn't the case. And now, for a while, millions and millions of people all over the world were talking about this brand for in a negative light for some amount of time. And I was surprised when I spoke at Columbia University. There was a professor there that I was just there to present my story, but it turns out, for whatever reason, she approached it like it was a debate of some kind, or she did some research and she presented it after I had talked. Surprised me to show that my video didn't affect the profitability overall in United Airlines. And it did have a stock drop, but I said that myself, right? It didn't. They say that it's dropped United stock by 10% or $180 million for a time. I suspect it didn't really have that big an effect, but it did have some kind of effect. But ironically, the professor that was giving this data to diminish the effect of United Breaks Guitars on the airline industry or wider, she was approaching it uh, like the profitability is the only thing that mattered. And she
Right,
was a branding professor. She was so wrong. I couldn't believe that she's missing. She's teaching people about branding, but she has no idea that your brand is the sum of the conversations being had about you,
for
right? So when
sure.
you leave a room and what people are talking about, that's your brand, and that affects everything about when we build our brands. We're trying to build our story and have when we leave a room, people say good things about us because that has positive spin-offs. Uh, United Breaks Guitars had a major impact in the world of uh, of brand building and storytelling, and it's not always just measured in dollars.
Most definitely. I feel sorry for people who think like that. I think that the measure of the song, and I think it's like, important as an artist just to be able to express yourself. And when something happens to you and be able to create something that starts a conversation. And like, just the power of that alone. Why do you believe though that storytelling is such a powerful tool in music and communication?
Because it's the thing that we've been doing as a species forever, right? Whether were writing we killed a woolly mammoth, we took the time to you couldn't even go to like a art store and buy paints. You had to build paint to paint that story on a cave, right? That's what we did. When something big happened, we wanted to uh, promote the story, share the story, and be remembered for a story. That's what human beings do, and that's how we communicate. And if we want to move people, you have to move them with emotion. And the only way to move people with emotion is to speak from the heart and have your stories and your messages land in the heart. Because if it's just a brain-based data charts and graphs thing, that's easily forgettable because it has no meaning. But stories create intrinsic meaning for people, and there's different ways to achieve that. So stories are really just they're they're I don't modules for feeling that you can insert in somebody's heart and it has an effect. And it's a skill and it's a craft. And there's a way to do it with music. You can do it with poetry. You can do it with paintings. You can do it in so many different ways. But ultimately, it's about conveying a feeling to somebody else without them necessarily having to have the experience. And that's valuable stuff. And as we get more and more into AI and technology, humans can't compete with that, but we can still deliver feeling, right? And if that's absent, that's the one guarantee that your story will never work. If you don't have any feeling in it, if the listener will not feel your message, you will not be successful.
How do you balance humor and warmth in your live performances to connect with audiences?
I like laughing and I like making people laugh a little bit. So uh, you touched on. I think that's the idea of balance is key. You don't. Um, I can only speak for myself, but for United Breaks Guitars, there's a lot of funny, humorous moments in there, but I was never the clown, right?
Right.
Uh, I had friends that were doing funny things, but by having the video set up the way it was, we could have funny things going on, but then I could step aside from that and go deep into the serious aspects of the story without contradicting or losing credibility for who I am. So that's where the art and the craft and the balance comes in. Certain measures are appropriate, and sometimes you go too far, and you maybe be less effective. But humor, again, if you want to make people feel something, we all want to laugh, we all cry, that sort of thing. So if you can take people to either one of those measures, it's a very powerful experience.
Dave, it's going to be some musicians and creators who are watching this interview. What advice do you have for people who want to inspire change with their art?
Don't give up, I guess, is the first one. Believe in yourself. If you really believe that, uh, if you're talking about justice, uh, if you believe in that and you're fair and balanced in the way that you're approaching it, then you should be able to share that message with anyone in the world, and anyone in the world should receive it the same way you intended it, right? So sometimes when people are trying to make a point, they think I have to appeal only to my base, find that market and appeal to them, and then they'll get loud, and then um, we'll take on the world, right? But in my case, again with the United Breaks guitars, it seemed to have a mass appeal that everybody could agree. Even corporate executives could agree there was a misstep there. And sometimes you don't have to take on the whole world. Sometimes you just have to
Right.
tell the world what happened, and the world will say, "Yeah, yeah, you got a point there." And you can avoid confrontation and get results without hurting anybody else in the process or being unfair, or you can win without somebody losing sometimes, and that requires intention and requires attention.
You were talking earlier about being a professional speaker, and you've also written a book. So you're an author. How has the experience of those two different careers to being a musician influenced your music?
Again, the I don't think the writing, they're just two separate forms of storytelling, right? So
Right.
I've enjoyed getting into it. I've written two books actually. So I wrote a book about United Breaks Guitars, which is kind of a business book and how it happened, and basically told the story with words. But I also wrote a book called Tom the Tomato Plant for kids. It's an illustrated kids book, and I've enjoyed that. It's influenced me in that I've got this story that I wrote for my own kids, but it's appropriate for elementary school kids. So I've done probably 60 or 70 elementary school shows in the last year. And the story of that is about a tomato plant that's smaller than all the rest, and he's not going to be valued at the farmer's market. And no surprise, he gets put at the back of the table, and all the other tomato plants get picked first. And then he finally realizes he's never going to get a forever home until one day a little girl comes by with her family, and she notices this tomato plant when nobody else did, and she persuades everybody to come over and take an interest, and they take Tom home and put him on the sunniest part of the deck where he stretches and he's trying to touch the sky and everything, and grow the biggest tomatoes he could grow, because nobody ever thought that he would. And eventually he overachieves and grows four giant tomatoes and understands that it's late in the season, it starts to snow on him, and he knows that uh, something's changing. He doesn't know quite what it is, but he's filled with gratitude for the life that he had, right? And so that the story is kind of about death and dying. It's a kind of about appreciating the moments that we're in, and that life isn't about the beginning and the end, but the process in the center. And that sort of changed my life, because I'm now talking to young people, and I had to remind myself that storytelling isn't about being the smartest person in the room or having the biggest words, or it's really about just connecting people from the heart. And uh, so I sing. I have songs that are part of that experience. And but as a speaker, this is one of my most interesting experiences. As a speaker, I gave my presentation to the board of directors for a major cruise line. So some of the more powerful people in corporate America, right? And it went well. And then 3 days later, I gave almost the exact same presentation to kindergarten kids in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And to me, that was a lesson that storytelling is not about the brain, it's about the heart. Because how else could I speak to captains of industry and kindergarten kids in the same week and give the same presentation and have it resonate the same way? Right. And it's because love and compassion and those type of things are ingrained in our heart. And storytellers can activate that. That's our superpower and that's our gift.
How has the music industry changed since you started your journey, like, playing guitars and obviously, like, posting the video? You talked earlier about how you couldn't monetize on YouTube. And today, like, that's pretty common practice. Like, artists can, create a song in their bedroom and it'd be viral. Like,
Mhm.
do you feel like, that's a good thing?
That's a good question. It's a different thing. So it's not it's if you wanted to make it in the music business in the old school model, you're going to hate what's going on right now, right? It's not good news for you if you were part of a major label and you were the songwriter of a song that got played on all the radio stations. You'd be like I heard if you have a number one hit on the pop charts, you make $1 million a week for every week that it's on the number one, right? Now, if you get a hit on Spotify, it could get millions and millions of views, and you might only make like $1,500.
Right.
So your music is kind of like your loss leader now. It's kind of like when you buy like a rotisserie chicken at the grocery store. It's pretty cheap, but they sell them at that price to get you to go in and buy other more expensive food. Well, that's what's going on, I think, with the music industry. You don't make a lot of money on the front end with your hit song. What you do is you get exposure, and then maybe you do ads, or maybe you're an influencer, so other people pay you to do things. It's your loss leader now, music, I think. And so the major label, when United Breaks Guitars came out, as I mentioned, they weren't interested even as a news story because they didn't see the value or the way to make money on it. Now the major labels are all screaming for market share and for views because the way you make money in the music industry now is you give the people the music that they want, then you go on tour and you sell t-shirts. So a $75 t-shirt is how people are making money now more than the music. And so it's turned the industry upside down on its head. That's why so many major labels are going out of business, and people are able to, like you say, maybe make something in their bedroom and have a shot at getting notoriety, and then have a shot at turning their life around, all on their own initiative, just because their music's good. So merit based, right?
A lot of people would say that streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music generally pay fractions of a cent per stream, and they're taking advantage of artists. Do you have any thoughts about that?
No, they totally are. I don't know if it's not just the streaming platforms, it's the people that subscribe to it too, right? And everybody's involved. If you're paying $10 a month for all the music that you can consume, you're not paying the artist very much, right?
Yeah.
And so the streaming networks have sort of turned into something closer to a buffet, and the you can like number 77 in the buffet, but you're probably not going back to it because there's 99 other options to choose from. So for listeners, it's a great deal, $10 a month, and I can explore the world. And there's apparently 100,000 songs a day being uploaded to
Right.
the. So as a consumer of music, it's good, but as a producer of music, it's kind of an awful situation. And uh, maybe the biggest theft or dirty trick, if whatever you want to call, happened when the major labels had this agreement. They would sign you up, you would be a part of a major label, and you'd probably not get a great deal, but you would at least get something because the major label they would definitely push your music because they want to make some money. And you might get a fraction of that money, but at least you get something. Nobody envisioned what would happen with the streaming services. But when Spotify came out, they went to all the major labels and they said, "We'd like your whole catalog. We need to have a lot of music here to attract people." And the major label said, "Sure, we'll give you all of this music for a horrible deal,"
Right.
but they agreed for stock options. So the day that Spotify uh, went public, I think Sony sold 10 or 15% of their of their stock. So they still retained 85% of their shares, but they made something like $400 million in a day. And the artist got none of it, right?
Right.
Because the people who owned the songs gave the songs away in future for stocks options at the beginning. No one could have seen that coming, right? So it's been an awful deal for music creators.
How do you feel about AI? A lot of like music artists feel that it's a really bad thing, particularly if you know they take an artist's voice. Drake did that, like with the Kendrick Lamar beef, where he used, I think he used Tupac on a AI generated song, and like it's just been like a bunch of like deep fakes like that come out where like you find out like this isn't like the actual artist that made this song. They have nothing to do with it. Is that something like that you are concerned about as an artist? Like,
Yeah, good question. And I think the answer is kind of what I just said about Spotify. It's good for consumers. It's good for creators who don't have a lot of talent, maybe. Like uh, if I if you wanted to write a song about your grandmother or something, but you can't write. You wanted to give a gift. You can now go to AI and say, "Hey, my grandmother did this, this, and this, and this, and this, and she used to like this type of artist. Give me a song about her and this style of music." And in 1 minute, uh, there are apps that'll spit that out. That's kind of nice to give to someone as a gift, right? But as a content creator who understands how to write a song and the challenge that goes into it, and to try and bring that essence in to get it up to that high standard, AI is not hitting that high standard yet, but it's getting better by the second, and there will be an influx. You can't stop it. There's going to be an influx of songs that you won't be able to tell if it was human written or generated uh, by AI, and I think that's kind of just the way it is. And you'll have to decide. It's like your furniture. You can buy something that's cheaper, but it looks okay, or you can buy a table and chairs made by Amish carpenters, right? And
right.
that's going to be the real thing. It'll last forever, and the workmanship will be clear. But I'm afraid most people won't appreciate the craftsmanship and the excellence and the effort. But there'll always be people that will say this one's homemade, right? This is a real song, and they'll like that better. But for just general consumption, I think AI is a threat to uh, what we know about an industry. But I will say though that I use AI in different areas. I'm dipping my toe in it now and seeing what's out there, and I don't mind the idea of using AI as a tool to help. Like I could say to ChatGPT, give me 10 song titles today, whatever. And sometimes the title is the thing that starts an idea, right? And so as an artist, I would refrain from asking it to give me lines and that sort of thing. But some people would, for sure. I don't know. What do you think?
I think with anything, there's the ability for things to be misused. I think that if you're using it properly, like I know Beanie Siegel recently, like he had some damage to his voice. He's a rapper from Philadelphia. And so like he released a song where like he recorded the song, but it goes back to how his original voice sounded before like the damage
Yeah.
to that had been done to his throat. And I mean, I think that's a great thing, like, for artists. I know like the DOC, he's a rapper like, from Texas who was affiliated with NWA. And basically he was in a car accident where his voice was damaged. So like, he's been playing with AI to be able to release music and make it sound like, he sounded because now like, his voice is very raspy. It doesn't sound like originally like and I think that that's a really great thing and for nostalgia purposes and for people with the ideas of I don't think I don't know how I feel about people releasing songs that they didn't write and they use particularly just all I guess maybe that's the place for it because like there's ghostwriting. I think like that what you were saying about the oversaturation potential where people could release all this music and none of them are actually like songwriters or they didn't write these songs, they didn't produce these songs. And then that goes into the idea of like where are those ideas coming from, so how can you copyright? What if like they take that information from say like one of your songs, how do you get compensated for that? You see, it's complicated. And I mean, I think that's the issue. And I think like, that's the same thing with like screenwriters, these ideas, because they have screenwriters writing movies. So where do these ideas come from? They had to pull that idea from somewhere. And the idea, if you were the creator of that actual work and your idea is the basis for that and you're not getting compensated from that, I think that's where the problem comes into play. But if they could figure out a way where, like, let's say they pull from your song and you're able to get compensated, I think that's a great thing.
But wouldn't you say that I was just debating with a friend of mine about this. We're both taking the same side at times, back and forth, just exploring this. But if artists are influenced by people all the time, there's only, 3 or 4 chord rock and roll or that type of music. There's only so many notes in that in
For
4 chord option, right? So we're always borrowing from something else. We're inspired from this. We shift it just a little bit,
sure.
and it's becoming harder and harder to say this is where it was stolen, right?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, yeah. So when high profile artists get sued for plagiarism, it, the song that they're accused of plagiarizing was probably stolen from somebody else,
Right.
right?
That's very
Right?
true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, like no idea's original. You were talking about you when you went to Columbia, you were talking to a branding professor. I could see you actually like, you knew something even before then and you learned something because you got the big break enterprises in the background. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So while all this was happening, I had been an independent singer-songwriter with my Sons of Maxwell for 20 years, and we had all the highs and lows that you could have as a indie band. And I had said for years, like I believed in myself, whether if nobody else did, I always did. And I said, someday something's going to happen. And when it happens, I'm going to be ready. I don't know what's going to happen. But then this happens. And so I thought of it as my big break, the one I'd been waiting for. And so that's my logo with the broken guitar from the video, and I called my company Big Break Enterprises, and it encompasses music and speaking and all those things, the spokes that come off of that.
Most definitely. Dave, you truly are one of the nicest people in the music business. What projects or themes are you currently exploring in your music or speaking engagements?
So the when I first started doing the speaking, I had never done it before, so I was pretty nervous about it, and just sort of came out and told my story. This is how it happened. This is who I am. And I felt like it was being very well received, but the more I did it, the more I realized that this is really about storytelling. So I planted the flag in that space as a speaker, and now I talk about and when people talk about having a marketing problem, if you think you have an advertising problem, uh, I think you're doomed. So what people have are storytelling problems, and if you get your head around that, it becomes a lot less daunting to think I need to have an ad marketing agency bail me out of this problem I have. Chances are you got into business because you had a good idea, or you wanted to be a musician. So I know I got good songs in me, right? And uh, if you just continue to believe in yourself, then acknowledge that the problem you have is a storytelling problem. How do I convey my songs and my things in a way that no one else really has yet, but it's close enough to bring a lot of people in? What we were just talking about with imitating other people or drawing inspiration from different sources, right? The people that stand out usually don't come out of nowhere with nothing that no one can relate to uh, and succeed. They usually have a different version uh, of a style of music and present it in a slightly different way that you can still sort of remember what you liked about the last kind. So yeah, that's my approach. And I would say that if people understood that they could become the best versions of themselves in the eyes of other people, if they presented their story appropriately, they would change how they approach marketing and the way they think about it.
Dave, it's such an honor, like to have you on, and I really appreciate you. You're welcome back anytime. I remember when United Breaks Guitars came out, being in on the internet and seeing that video for the first time, and we thought it was hilarious. I was in college at the time,
Yeah.
and the funny thing is, like I'm actually from Chicago. I hate flying into O'Hare. I always wanted to fly into Midway. That's my preference. But like, thank you so much, Dave, for taking the time. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Ryan. And I'll say too that, I've done a fair number of podcasts and stuff, and it's not often that everybody is so prepared as you are. When we talked about before what we might talk about, I asked that because sometimes people are unclear where we're going with the direction, but you had a clear purpose on what we were going to talk about, and I appreciate it. It makes it a lot of fun.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I'd love to have you back. Maybe one day we could do it in person, and I really appreciate you.
Yeah, you as well, man. Thank you.